Welcome or welcome back to the channel. All good things come to an end, the end of the line. This is it, I'm done. All those things mean that a chapter is about to close, and sadly and indeed, this is going to be the last video about my green Maluch, so let's get started. The last proper video that I recorded has already been 3 months ago. It was the video of me talking about swapping the alternator. I had to do that because a bolt ripped apart, thus it wasn't charging the car battery, and as I had one lying around as a spare part, I did it myself. At first glance it seemed to have worked because I was able to install it, I was able to drive on location, I was able to record the video, and it was only when I was trying to get home that I realized that I must have done something wrong. How did I realize that? Well, that was pretty easy because I was starting the car and suddenly it was making a very weird noise coming from the back of it. So I immediately switched it off, checked in the back what's been happening, and sadly I didn't see anything. So this only meant that I must have done something wrong while installing the alternator. So I'm there on location, luckily very close to home, maybe a kilometer and a half. So towing away the car would not have been an issue. So towing a Maluch, a Fiat 126P, is a very basic task because the car is very light. However, I made it very hard on myself because first of all, I didn't ask for help, which was stupid decision number 1. Followed by stupid decision number 2, which was that I decided on towing away the car by using my bike. Yeah, pretty stupid, and of course this didn't work. And stupid decision number 3, the least stupid one, was to attach a towing rope around my hips and tow the car away like this. This worked actually pretty fine. I was sadly missing a second person to steer the car around, but I managed to do that. It took me an hour for the remaining 800 meters, but I got the car back into the garage, and there it's been sitting for a couple of weeks, maybe a few months. And in the meantime, I was browsing the internet for some spare parts, in this case a spare refurbished reconditioned alternator, which I quickly found because spare parts are still readily available on the internet. A few days later it arrived here in Austria, and before trying a second time I checked if all the parts are there. I reassembled the alternator as good as I was able to. I posted a few questions online if I did anything wrong installing the alternator or why the weird sound was there in the first place. And within just a few minutes I received proper information that saved me a lot of time and effort, and it said that the problem wasn't with the alternator or how I installed it, but with the fan itself. The car has been used for the past 28 years on a regular basis, and apparently the fan has been used so much that the place where the alternator meets the fan is round now, as you can see on the photo, and it's not supposed to look like this. It's supposed to look like the second picture right here. It is a pretty basic round shape but with edges to it. So no matter how I would have installed the alternator, it would not have worked because the fan was sitting loose on the alternator and thus making the very weird sound. Although I believe, if I remember correctly, it did charge the battery of the car. So anyway, the only proper solution would have been to tow the car away to a workshop, have it professionally fixed, but this would have meant higher costs and a longer stay at a workshop. So with that in mind, I tried to chill out for a few days, and I was thinking what is next for the green car, and this is where I finally decided to part ways with it. So why did it take me 7.5 years to come to that decision? First of all, it wasn't an easy decision at all. As I said on various videos, I enjoy both of the cars equally whenever they drive, which is sadly not that often. It's been a very reliable car for the most part of my ownership. It was only last year in 2021 that I had to invest a little bit more money into it in order to pass the technical inspections. But knowing that in the not too distant future there will be bigger repairs necessary because sadly corrosion has set in on some vital parts, and this is something that I don't want to do anymore. So I am currently in talks with an acquaintance of mine who recently purchased themselves a Fiat 126P, a Maluch, so maybe they're in need of spare parts, or maybe they are willing to give the green Maluch another life. Let's see what comes up in the next couple of weeks. Before finishing this video, I would like to quickly tell you the highlights of the green Maluch, starting with probably the very first clip that I recorded after having purchased it and placing it at my aunt's place. This was in 2015. Prior to having bought the car, I had a technical inspection done. Luckily it passed it, which made me very happy. It had slightly over 19,000 kilometers on the odometer. Now 7.5 years later, 6.5 years here in Austria, I managed to clock in another 16,000, which makes me very proud because I did that in 7.5 years. And the two previous owners managed to only drive 19,000 kilometers in 21 years. So that is cause for celebration. In 2016 I had it transported here to Austria. I registered it here, which was a pretty straightforward process. However, there were a few problems here and there. I had to translate a few documents, but in the end it was very quickly done. And since then it's been serving as my daily driver, and as I said, it's been reliable for the longest time. The most fun trip that I ever had with the car was in 2019, when I returned from Poland with the car. I had it there for some necessary repairs, and as a reward I decided to drive back home myself. I did a very similar trip in 2011. However, back then I purchased a slightly modified Fiat 126P, and I didn't have a prior technical checkup done, which would come back and bite me in the ass only a couple of hours into my journey back home to Austria. I was in the middle of Germany, going to a gas stop to fill up the car and to just for a short break. And as I was leaving it, I heard a very weird and loud noise coming from the engine. So I immediately checked on it, and I saw that a bolt ripped apart. It was a bolt that kept the exhaust pipe to the cylinder block. So I had to call road assistance, which quickly arrived within 45 to 60 minutes, solved the problem by using a bigger bolt. And I decided back then, for whatever reason, that I will not be listening to the radio as long as I'm on the road. I wasn't listening to the music prior to the accident, so I don't know where that came from, but anyway, I decided on that. Another 7 to 8 hours on the road, I am suddenly crossing the border to Austria, and I'm fed up with listening to the engine sounds of the car, so I switch on the radio. A few minutes later, a few kilometers farther, I hear another loud boom coming from the back of the car, so I left the Autobahn, searched for a safe space to switch off the car, checked in the back, and I saw that the exhaust pipe exploded. So it's getting dark outside, I'm in the middle of nowhere, slightly agitated, and I don't know what to do. So here comes in luck number 2 for the day, for the trip. Within just a few minutes, somebody took off from the Autobahn and asked me why I'm here standing in the middle of the dark, and I told them my exhaust pipe exploded, I can't continue my journey. And this person was so kind to me and offered me the help in their workshop, which was only a few kilometers farther. So I followed them, they welded my exhaust pipe together, I gave them my last 50 euros, and I was able to continue my journey back home. This entire trip took 13 to 14 hours if I remember correctly, and I was very exhausted when I got home, but I finally managed it. This was the moment that I finally decided to never undertake a big trip with a Maluch without having a technical checkup done myself and spare parts. And I followed my own rule. Even in 2019, when I returned with my green Maluch, I had it there for repairs, and I had a technical checkup done. So everything was in order. However, still I was lucky that nothing went wrong. It was a 10-hour trip without any problems, and I was very glad to be home after 10 hours, still very exhausted. And these both memories I will cherish for as long as possible. And with that thought, I have only one last sentence to say. It is something negative, or not really something that I've been looking forward to, However, I tend to see the positives as well. This will finally allow me to pursue those ongoing projects for the orange Maluch that I've been postponing for a number of years. For example, the interior, I've been postponing it for I guess 2.5 years now, but we'll see how this turns out. Anyway, thank you for your attention. Hit that like button, leave your comments down below, and I'll be seeing you soon. Bye.